All right, Full Sail. Hey, let's give him a hand there. Well, welcome to Full Sail Live. My name is John Yandel, and I'm the Associate Course Director for Advanced Session Recording. So glad you've joined us here today. We have a special guest with us. Actually, you guys have been so lucky. So we've had two of these this week. It's been amazing. The first one with Phil Tan, and now with Grammy-winning, and again, a Hall of Fame inductee, Leslie Brathwaite. Let's give him a good hand. All right.
Check. All right. First of all, where is my child? Where's Isabel?
She's running around. Oh, she is. Okay. She's up there. She's safe in the hands of Danielle.
Okay. Because she would destroy this whole building.
Yeah.
Zoe, how you doing back there with the refreshments? You good? All right.
Awesome.
You made us some money? You want to pay the water bill this month? Oh, but you will.
That's great. She's selling a little water. If you haven't gotten your water yet, please be sure to go up there and grab you a bottle, okay? Awesome. Well, thanks for being here, Leslie. Really appreciate it. Why don't you talk to them a little bit about maybe some of the things that you're working on currently so they can kind of get an idea?
Right now, I am currently working on a bunch of stuff. I work, for those of you who may not know, I work a lot with Akon. He has an initiative in Africa where he's doing, he's sponsoring these solar universities where they teach a lot of the locals and a lot of the local communities in Africa how to build solar power and power their
That's awesome.
the villages and towns. And he wants to, the initiative is to bring 600 million people in Africa electricity. And so with that, he's kicking off this big project where he's releasing 5 albums at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's going to be covering different genres. There's a reggae album, a world album, a dance album, pop album, and I can't remember the other one.
And is that in conjunction with a bunch of different artists?
No, just him.
Just him?
Just all him.
Oh, okay.
And
wow.
he's just trying to show a lot of his different musical sides and also unite, people, blah, blah, blah. And it's a big initiative, and we've been working on it for a while. And then, of course, I got stuff that I'm always getting from Pharrell and
right.
doing that. And I'm working on Monica's album right now. And
great.
There's a few other people here and there, Chris Brown, and it's got all kind of stuff going on.
I was thinking, because you've been at this for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and you were around when tape was still being used and analog consoles, and then things switched to digital tape, but still analog consoles,
Mm-hmm.
and now we're kind of making the full swing into just everybody kind of being in the box for the most part. So, what do you see as the most significant change in the way that you've had to change your workflow, maybe? And then what do you see coming forward? Like what's ahead of us in this industry, maybe?
I think one of the biggest changes is, to me, most of the changes, if not all of the changes, have been extremely positive. Because on tape, something that used to take me 45 minutes to do in a computer now would take me 15 seconds.
Right.
So, and that's not an exaggeration. I
Sure.
literally have scenarios that would take me 45 minutes to 2 hours on tape, like flying vocals.
Right.
And flying vocals, literally, I can fly a hook of a song in 10 seconds on a computer just by copy, paste.
Right.
Back in the day, you had to sit there and physically cut the tape and line it up. And, I have a scar on my hand from cutting my hand while I'm trying to cut the tape, and it was a mess.
Razor blades, man. We don't have to have those anymore, do we?
Yeah, so all the progress in my eyes has been positive because I can get way more done in a day now than I used to before. So my workflow is like,
Do you find yourself working alone more?
Yes and yes. It's a weird question because we do, we work in smaller rooms. Everybody's a little more separated because we do have the internet. But the communication is actually more, in my opinion. So because we can Skype and talk to each other on text and the phone and da-da-da, even though we're physically separated a lot more, we still keep in contact
Communication.
Communication is still
the
there.
key.
Yeah. And the communication technology is faster to where I can be at work and I can be working, and then I can take time off to every night at 8 o'clock when the girls are going to sleep. We FaceTime and we say our prayers, and so I can still do nighttime prayers, and then I can still be working, and so technology is great. You know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Again, what do you see moving? Oh, hey, Jay, welcome.
Yeah.
Just want to make it more comfortable for the crowd here.
Check, 1, 2.
Should be a little bit better.
Check, can you hear me? Good, we have the technology to do that. Thanks.
Jay Noble, everybody. Jay
Thanks,
Noble.
Jay.
All right.
Jay is actually the first person I met when I ever came to Full Sail.
Oh, really?
Yep, I came. My dad brought me. My dad is out here somewhere. Where is he? There he is. It's my dad, everyone. So, my dad brought me for what we're doing tomorrow. The what is it? The behind the scenes tours. And back then it wasn't too much behind the scenes, but it was still, and he brought me, and then we met Jay. Jay was the first person we met.
Jay's been a fixture around this place for a while, hasn't he? So,
and
he wears
now
many
he's all
hats.
big, and he's like the vice president and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Got all big titles and stuff.
Oh, that's
clearly.
Right. That's all right. That's always great. So, what part of today is just all Q&A for you guys? Cause
Yeah, just
Leslie really wants to have some questions that you guys have to ask him. So,
and
if you
do
have
we,
any
do
questions
we have
out
a
there,
mic runner? Who's our mic runner today?
he's got one up there. So just raise your hand and make sure you stand up, introduce yourself. Make sure you hold the microphone up close. So if you have any questions, got one down here in the front right there.
I know you kind of knew this was coming. I always have questions for you. How you
man.
been?
I know.
So this is a very personal question. If you were graduating in October 30th and you were moving to Atlanta, what would be the first thing you do when you get to the Atlanta area?
You're graduating October 31st. If I were you, I would look for me. No, I'm just playing. In any phase of what you're doing, whether it's, trying to find an internship or a job, or even non-related to technical stuff, if you're just trying to find something to survive, just keep an open mind and come to Atlanta with an open mind and explore all your opportunities. Don't just come with one set focus. And a lot of times we as human beings tend to do that. Like, we get our minds fixed on something and we say, okay, I want to go do this. And then you only have that, and your tunnel vision causes you to miss out on all these other great opportunities that you can't see because you're so focused on the one thing. And it's cool to have the focus, but still keep an open mind. Explore all your possibilities. Because a lot of times, some of my best opportunities just in life have come from either unplanned events, something that I just took a chance on. It's never all scheduled and planned. Like, I met my wife, Doris, my lovely wife, sitting right there. Where is she?
Hey, Doris.
I met my wife through a mutual friend who me and him developed a relationship of working together, and originally I would have never worked with them, and I didn't allow myself to. It was Manny Fresh from Cash Money. A friend of his introduced us, and typically back then Cash Money wasn't the kind of group that everybody would have been rushing to work with, because they seemed like they were wild, and it was like a wild bunch of people and da-da-da, and I was like, you know what, I gave everything a shot. And so even through giving that opportunity a shot, I ended up with a wife and 2 lovely but crazy kids. So, sky's the limit.
Hey, Leslie, just along those lines, can you kind of tell your journey to Atlanta, like how you arrived there and what was
after
your
Full
process?
Sail, I packed up my car and I drove up to Atlanta, and I started interning at a couple different small studios, and I had my sights set on Dallas Austin's facility. He had just opened his facility, and I found a way to get in over there. I just went over there and talked to the studio manager and told him I'd do whatever I need to do to stay around and work for free and do whatever. And so I interned there and just kind of worked my way up in that system at Dark Studios. That was Dallas Austin's studio. And then from there, I ended up moving over to Patchwork Studios for another 8, 9 years over there doing things. And then early in my career, I kind of met and developed a good relationship with Akon. When there was a time when Akon was homeless and, he didn't have anywhere to sleep and all that. And me and him just bonded. And he ended up, becoming the mega star that he is. And I remember one time I was interning and I was taking some trash out as an intern, and I saw Akon sleeping in his van behind the studio.
Wow.
And so I was like, well, hey, go the keys to my apartment. You can go down there and, so you can sleep in my apartment. I'm never there. I'm always here.
Right.
So I always, I gave him a place he can go take a shower, he can take a nap, da-da-da. And he always would say, man, when I hit it big, I'm going to make sure I look out for you, da-da-da. And fast forward, after Patchwork, Akon became this megastar, and he had a building, and he was like, man, I want you in my building. And he built me a room and said, hey, this is your room.
That's so awesome.
Do your thing. And, so that's where I am now. I'm at his facility.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yep.
So was there anything about Atlanta in particular that brought you there? Was that
I
family
did
there,
not want to live in New York at the time, and I did not want to live in L.A. So it was more of me eliminating where I didn't want to be.
Right.
I had a very clear, and then I when I was in school, I read an article that Dallas was opening the studio, da-da-da, and I was like, yep, see, that's where I need to be.
Drove you there.
Yeah, so I
Gotcha.
just followed my gut.
Any other questions out there? Come on, guys. Here's one right here.
Oh,
In
there
front.
you go.
Hello, Leslie.
Hi.
I've been asking this question to all the grads, but when it comes to females in the industry, I just want to know what your experience has been with it, because I've asked Demo, Marcella, and Phil now, and so I just kind of want to know what's your experience and what kind of tips you have for
I think early in my career in the 90s, the world is kind of evolving, but kind of not. So as much progress as we've made as a culture, I mean, you guys can turn on the news, look at the news, look at the stuff that's happening, and look at the progress we haven't made. And it's the same thing in the industry where you would see, I remember in the 90s, I remember somebody turning me down from an internship position, and I kind of called him out on it one time when I bumped into him later. I just felt like, to be honest and to be totally blunt, I felt like the reason he didn't give me a shot. He said, well, his words to me were, man, I missed out on a golden opportunity. This is, I went to the studio looking for an internship. He didn't hire me. And about 4 years later, this is after TLC and all the stuff I'd worked on, he saw me somewhere and was like, man, I shouldn't have passed on you. You turned out to be da-da-da. And he was like, man, at the time, you just didn't look the part. And I know what that meant. And it felt racial. It felt like he was saying, hey, you didn't look like the other engineers that typically work in studios. I was, one of the very few black people that you would see coming into a very white male-dominated thing. So experiencing that and seeing how it's evolved, I saw the same thing with women, where women wouldn't be taken seriously in the industry. It's funny, me and my wife were having a conversation the other day how it's kind of how you could take things for granted, but she kind of was saying, yeah, babe, women still don't get paid equally. There's a job that a woman can have, that a man can have, and a woman will just get paid significantly less for no reason other than the fact that she's a woman. So we've really haven't come that far. So you see those kind of things, and that is the reality. But it's not to say that things aren't progressing and you see more women like Marcella and doing well. And, I remember when I first met Marcella, she assisted me on some sessions. Me and Cash Money, we flew down to Miami to work at Hit Factory. Marcella was the assistant. And I never once said to myself, oh, this is a girl, she can't do it. She proved to me right away that she had what it took. It never once dawned in my mind. So I feel like the world is evolving, slowly but surely. But you do, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and I always tell you guys and students and parents, and I'm not here to sell you roses and lollipops, because just like the world is an ugly place sometimes, the industry can be an ugly place sometimes, Oh, they cut you off.
Yeah, they cut me off.
You got one more.
And I got one more. It's like polar opposite of what I just asked, but it's just on workflow. Like, how do you kind of devise up your workflow and kind of get through things, because you're a busy man, like you get a lot on your plate. So how do you kind of?
I've kind of learned over the years that I used to think that trying to do a whole lot in one day was productive, but it's actually counterproductive. And what I've learned is to take breaks, to balance. Through my family, I've learned that I have to take vacations and get out the studio and do other things. So balance and taking breaks and not killing yourself, you actually become more productive. And so for me, my workflow is based around, and when I say balance, I mean, for instance, if I get to the studio, I don't necessarily just jump right in. I might, download some files that somebody sent me, and in the meantime, I'll get on the video game. I like video games, so I'll get on the game and play a game, clear my head. As I'm working, if I get stuck or if I feel like I'm stumped, I might just stop for a minute, play a video game. Do things that you like to do and balance yourself out. But that's the key, taking breaks. Don't burn yourself out. Don't think you got to do it. When you're younger, you got all the energy in the world, and I didn't have a family at the time, so I was just 24/7 in the studio, and I realized that, as you get older, you realize that's not the most productive mode. It's actually more productive to take breaks and stuff. Yes, Isabel. Who just called me? Was it Isabel? Yes, Izzy. Hi, Izzy. Hi.
Awesome. Any other questions over here, anybody? No, there's a question here from online, so we've got a couple of things on here.
Okay.
One is about, it says, you're extremely active on social media, especially Instagram. What's your advice for using it as a business tool in the music industry?
I think it's a great tool, and I get a lot of business on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. I've had a lot of clients who find me that way, and it's, as much as you would hear a lot of people who just don't like change and don't like adapting, at the end of the day, this is how we communicate. This is the world we live in, is an Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook world. I find out most of the major news about my friends and family on Facebook. It's life. It's the way we communicate. So you could either go against it and, think that there's some other way to do this, or you could just be like, you know what? Cool. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I'm in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's definitely where we're at in the society, for sure. Also, another question was, what artists have you always wanted to work with but haven't had the opportunity to yet?
That's an interesting question. And you know what's funny? I get asked that question, quite a lot. And recently, I feel like I'm kind of at a good place because the question stumps me. So if there's not too many people I could think of that I really want to work with, that's saying something. So
How about
honestly,
somebody from the past?
That I would have wanted to work
would
with.
have wanted to work with.
Oh, that's an easy question. Bob Marley. If I had a choice, Bob Marley would have been first choice. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But for me, I like working with younger, unknown talent. I like working with the new artists. I like that flow as well. So
kind of find
it's
the
not so
diamond in the
much.
rough.
Yeah, you get into the industry and you realize it's not all glamour and glitter. And I was telling a group this morning, one thing that becoming an industry professional makes you realize is things aren't what they seem. Like, I remember being a kid, and I remember my dad, and he could tell you this. I remember my dad. You remember he used to listen to Whitney Houston all the time, and my dad loved Whitney Houston. And then I got in the industry, and I saw the behind the scenes, and I would probably ruin his day if I told him some of the stories I've seen.
Right.
And some of the things I saw and some of the things I've seen behind the scenes.
It's a hard life.
Yeah, so you kind of get out of that whole fairy tale thing really quickly. And then for me now, I like working with new talent. I like working with young talent, people who are just excited, and you like watching somebody go from a virtual nobody to a megastar.
Right.
That's the stuff that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, very
But the
exciting.
stars that you think are glamorous and the people you think you want to work with, you work with them for a day and you be like, oh, You know.
That's awesome. Do we have another question over here? Here we go, back over here on this side. That's
I
right.
got a question.
And we got one down here when you finish.
Okay. With much of your success with all projects that you've been a part of, and I noticed that it was a good amount of mixing engineers and production producer engineers who were making plugins as well. Has the opportunity ever come about to where you would actually come out with plugins or have some involvement with some?
I've had conversations, but one of the conversations I had with one of the execs is that I didn't want to force it, and I didn't want it to look corny, or I didn't want it to be a corny thing. So I wanted it to be. It's one of those things where the conversation there are conversations in place now with certain companies to develop a plugin, but I didn't want to force it, and it's kind of one of those things where when it comes and it has some type of organic feel to it. You know what I mean? I don't want to just, Leslie Brathwaite has a plugin just because, it has to be something that makes sense for what I do, the style of mixing I do, my approach, that kind of thing. And I haven't really found that yet, so I don't like forcing stuff. I like to just, but it's happening. It's coming.
Gotcha. There's a couple of questions down
Question
here.
down here.
We have a mic.
Oh, right here.
Bill, yeah.
Where is she? Right here.
Hi. Hi, Leslie.
Hi.
So, recently I've been having issues with close relatives or maybe close friends and trying to get them to understand that when we graduate from here, we're going to go out there and get our dreams, and that means leaving. That means leaving where we grew up, and, you have these people who don't have the passion that you have to go get out there and achieve your dreams. So my question is, how do you get them to understand? Because you don't want to lose them. You don't want to say, okay, well, you're negative, I'm cutting you off. You kind of really just want to have them close to you. So how do you get them to understand that I need you to be patient with me, I need you to understand that this is what I want without losing them?
Well, and this is through my experiences. Unfortunately, life just doesn't work like that. And life has a way of dictating who your friends are and aren't at certain times. And so you just do the best you can, and you will have those harsh realities of people that you were close to that you're not going to be close to anymore. When your situation changes, a lot of times your friends change. That's not a bad thing. And when you realize it's not a bad thing, then it's easier to deal with. And that's just how life is. Like, there's no magic answer for that other than when you grow, your circle of friends will change. That's part of life. I watched it happen with my wife when there's a certain set of friends that she had before she had kids. And then when we had kids, her circle of friends are kind of different because now as a mother, you're relating to other mothers. And that's just what happens. I posted about that the other day on Facebook when I was like, if all your circle of friends only consist of people you went to high school with, you're selling yourself short. Because there's a lot of great people in the world that can add to your life that you might have just met yesterday. And so that's one of the battles of growing up, is thinking that you always got to keep it real and stay with the people you grew up with and da-da-da. If they're really your friends and they're really supposed to be in your life, it'll be fine. I have friends that we went to school together back in the islands that I haven't seen in years, but they will comment on my Facebook pictures, and they love my daughters just as much as, friends that are around them all the time. But that doesn't mean, what I'm saying? True friendships transcend circumstances. So, it happens. Yeah.
So as you relate that to business, let's say, so when you were first starting out, did you find yourself having to work with people that you weren't necessarily happy working with, just because you needed to do the business?
Yes. That was. I told that story this morning. I'm not going to tell y'all who it is, but it's an artist that most of y'all should know and love. But she was extremely difficult to work with in the beginning of my career. And she would come to the studio, and engineers would go running. Nobody would want to touch her with a 10-foot pole because she was really, really difficult to work with. But I was the one person who was like, me, pick me, because I didn't have anything. So I didn't have anything to lose. I didn't care if, it was an unpleasant situation. I had a mission, I had a goal. I'll sit in the room with you, and you could be as funky as you want to be. That's fine. We're going to get this done. And through that, me and this artist, we worked together for the better part of 3 years, and we might have had 2 solid conversations. Like, it was that difficult to work with her.
Wow.
But I understood it, and I understood how to navigate the situation, and then it was like, all right, cool. And through that situation, I gained a lot of opportunities. I met a lot of people. I got a lot of other opportunities. So
That's great.
it still happens to this day. I work with all kind of people I don't like, or situations I don't like,
Right.
But you gotta, I always say you gotta have thick skin to work in the music business.
Right, and okay, so kind of along those lines too, I asked Phil this yesterday too, but most of the students here have experienced studios from an educational standpoint, and they haven't really experienced it as a workplace yet.
Mm-hmm.
So what can you tell students to expect in terms of maybe the attitude they need to have, or the skill set they need to have, what they need to be prepared to do when they enter the workplace in a studio environment?
Definitely, one of the best attitudes you can have, period, in life is just always never feeling like you know everything, always be in learning mode. I'm in learning mode all the time. I tell people all the time, see, I didn't come up in the Pro Tools era, so I didn't go to school, to learn Pro Tools. Everything I learned, everything I know about Pro Tools, I learned from my assistants who came out of school. They teach me just as much as I teach them, and it's still the same way today, where there are new technologies, new things that y'all are learning that I don't have the privilege of coming to school to learn, but I soak it up from y'all. So just as much as you might sit there and think you're learning from me, I'm learning from you the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Awesome.
That mentality is what you always got to have as far as making sure that you're always willing to learn, making sure that you don't think you know everything. Just the other day, I had to call one of my colleagues, Corey Anders. He's a Full Sail grad. I had to call him. Somebody asked me to do a certain type of effect on something, and I kind of remembered how to do it, but I didn't. So I called Corey, and I was like, "Hey, can you walk me through so and so real quick?" And he was like, "Yeah, you do X, Y, and Z, da da da." Cool. So you always got to be willing to learn. It's to me the best attitude to have. And probably the best advice you can give somebody as far as studio etiquette: know when to talk and know when to shut up. That's like the golden rule of studios. Like,
right.
You can ruin your whole career if you talk at the wrong time, because what you have to realize is you're dealing with artists and producers who all have the most fragile egos on the planet.
Right.
So if you say the wrong thing, you're out. And I've seen it happen to people. I've seen people get kicked out of sessions for saying the wrong thing. Sometimes when somebody asks you if you like their song, you know in your heart all they want to hear is yes. Even if it's the worst song you ever heard in your life, sometimes it just benefits you to be like, yep, it's great, even if it's not, because you know their ego is that fragile, and
right.
You know that's what you're dealing with. Sometimes you know when they do want your honest input, but 9 times out of 10, in a room full of people with a ton of people around, they're asking you because they want you to validate what they already think they know about their song, so those kind of things.
Sometimes you can just look at somebody the wrong way, and it's, sorry, you're out.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes it's certain people. I know certain artists that if you're not bobbing your head, like Kanye, I'm telling you, if you're in a room with Kanye and he playing a beat, you better be like, because if you ain't doing that, he going to be like, oh, I don't want him in the room. He got to go.
That's great.
He's like, yeah.
That is awesome. Any more questions? Yep. Got one here in the front. Then we'll take this one.
Yes, my name is Chris. How you doing, Leslie? My question is how you keep it kind of to your feet on the floor, kind of like on the ground, like.
Oh, how do I?
Or who keep you that way?
Who keeps me grounded?
Yeah.
The 2 little people running around here, and my wife.
Pretty much that.
My wife actually more so than them, because she's the person who tells me if I'm wrong. She has no problem assessing the situation for what it is. Like, that's what you get when you're married. Like, You getting the real story, and so I don't. And for me, like I don't really like anybody who knows me will tell you like I don't really go out. I don't do partying. I don't do any of the things that kind of perpetuate a certain type of lifestyle, the music, entertainment lifestyle. I don't do that stuff. Like, literally, if I'm not working, I'm somewhere with my family. If it's the summertime and it's a weekend, we are on the lake somewhere. I'm usually, my wife could tell you, if I'm at home and all of us having our downtime, I'm playing video games. That's what I do. Like, I don't really do all the glamorous, so I think by nature I'm kind of a grounded person, but yeah, a house full of women will definitely keep you grounded.
Thank you.
Got a couple more online questions here. Someone asked, what is your favorite memory of being a Full Sail student? And are there any crazy stories that you can share from back then?
From Full Sail?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite moments, honestly, I had a flat tire one time. I was going to class. I was late for class. And I'm sure everybody in this room, if you've been here long enough, and if you haven't, you will experience this. Gary Jones has this way of walking through the hallways and, like, say you're standing by the Starbucks, he'll buy everybody Starbucks. Have y'all experienced that yet with Gary? So Gary has this way of just making your day better. So I had a flat, and I was running to class, and Gary was like, "What's up, brother? What's going on? Oh, don't worry about it. Go to class." I came back, he had my tire fixed, and he gave me $100. Like, that's the kind of person. Am I right? That's how Gary is. Like, he'll see. And for those of you who are in the room that might not know who Gary is, like my dad, Gary Jones is the president of Full Sail, and he'll just walk around the hallway and be like, "What's the problem? Here, lunch on me, everyone." Like, that's Gary. So that was like a real memorable moment. I'm having a flat tire, and I'm like, and then Gary just,
That's
And
great.
then what was the other one? A crazy story?
Yeah, back in the day story. Is it?
A back in the day story about Full Sail? Oh, okay. Well, back in the day, there were no parking spaces. And we used to eat from a food truck called the Roach Coach. Y'all remember the Roach Coach?
Roach Coach.
Anybody? Remember the Roach Coach, Jay? Yeah. So, yeah, we got some crazy stories.
Let's see. Nick from Orlando asked, how have you dealt with the change in the industry with the decline of record sales, and how it has affected you, if at all?
Decline of record sales has not particularly affected me because the record sales have declined, but people still make music, and people still need to make music, and it still needs to sound good. So my job is to make music sound good. That part is still intact.
Right.
It still has to sound good. The record sales definitely affects the economy of the industry, which is, I don't make as much money as I used to in the 90s. In the 90s, it was like they was giving it away. Like,
right.
But, so now it's different. It's a different climate. We're still able to survive and do what we love. And so it's okay.
And you branched out a little bit more than just doing just records, too, being involved with Pharrell and some movie soundtracks and things
Right,
like that.
and then
too,
I do. I also produce as well when I feel like it. I don't do it often, but So it's there's different ways to still stay relevant and economically involved, and but things are a little different now that record sales have declined and music has just changed, and the way people consume music is different. Like
right.
So it's a
the
different
delivery system is different now.
Right,
and, yeah,
right.
Absolutely. All right, so let's see. I've got another one here from Jarrell from Buffalo, New York. Ask, how do you channel your creative mind, and how do you stay in that mindset?
I just stay around music, stay around things that I love to do. Creativity is not just limited to music and things entertainment-wise. Like, video games are creative, and playing video games is creative, and it's like all of that stuff. And like recently, I've been trying to go through this whole Lego kick with my daughters and get them in, because I love Legos.
Oh, sure.
So I'm trying to get them into Legos, and we're actually going to Legoland for next
right.
couple days from now, and I'm more excited about that than they are. But so anything like creativity comes in many forms and fashions, and so
Keep exploring, right?
yeah.
And they also ask, is there any books or articles that they should read to help them keep them on their toes, kind of thing?
One particular book that stuck out to me when I read it, it's just a very fascinating book. It's by Walter Yitnikoff. It's called Howling at the Moon. I suggest, if you ever get a chance, read that book. Walter Yitnikoff, for those of you who don't know it, he's the guy that signed Michael Jackson to his deal at, I think originally at CBS Records. But his book is like fun. It's entertaining. You can learn a lot from it. But any industry professional that you look up to, read their book. You probably would find a good read. Quincy Jones, stuff like that.
Great. Awesome. Any other questions here? I've got another one down front.
Down front.
One over here. Got some back there.
Jay, you got a question? Jay raised his hand.
Hello.
Oh.
Question, can you discuss the importance of cheesecake awareness in the studio? And also, is it true that you're thinking of adding a cheesecake identification course to the curriculum of RA?
Is that my fellow Hall of Famer, Larry Katz? Hi, Larry. Everybody, that's my fellow Hall of Famer, Larry Katz. What's up, man? Oh, wait, Joey. My other fellow Hall of Famer, Joey. Look at that. Hey.
Hey, Joey.
That story about your assistant and the cheesecake and that awareness, I think that is a really good lesson for everybody in the room.
Yes. Which cheesecake story? The one where I posted online and then he brought me some cheesecake? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny. So the other day, I was posting online about cheesecake and how much I love cheesecake. I'm not eating cheesecake currently because I'm on a diet because I lost some weight. But I was posting about this cheesecake and da-da-da. And the interesting thing is the main person who brought me some cheesecake, he wasn't even an intern. He was somebody who interned for me years ago. And now he's one of the chief, I believe he has a stake or ownership in Junior's Cheesecake now. He interned for me years ago, and he sent me some.
Wow.
But the interesting part is, none of the interns that currently work at the studio I'm at, half of them don't even follow me on Facebook. So I just think that's interesting that, you tell somebody, well, I want to be where you are and blah, 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 and I want you to be my mentor, and you didn't even bring me no cheesecake. And, and it's less about the cheesecake and more about the principle of paying attention to the cues and, doing the things that people like and, doing things that make you stand out and that kind of thing.
Well, now you mentioned, I follow you on Facebook, so I saw one of your posts recently, but it was about a guy. You actually showed a picture, and you kind of just gave kudos to this guy because it was somebody that you had made note of, that he was staying late in the studio, he was cleaning up, he was doing the waste baskets, he was staying late, arriving early, and you said, if I'm going to have any guy help me on the next project, it's going to be this guy.
Right, and I had him in my room for the following week, just assisting me and learning from me. And that picture I took, I think it was either a picture or a video, but
I think it was a picture, yeah.
Picture of he was on a security camera feed.
Right.
Yeah, and that was him. Every night I noticed out of all the interns, this was the guy who stayed latest, who showed up the earliest, who never had an excuse of why he had to leave, and that reminded me of me. I never, as an intern, I would never leave the studio before my clients. I would never say, oh, I have to leave now. So when I see that kind of thing, it kind of stands out.
Awesome. So you guys remember that, right? That's important.
Don't leave the studio.
All right, so do we have another one? There's a question over here.
Oh, we had a question up front.
Question up front, down
here. A question there, and a question there, and a question there. So up front here.
Got lots of questions.
And then the other,
got this one first, it looks like, and then we'll get this one down here in the front if you could.
Mm-hmm.
How's it going, Leslie? My name is James. And a question I have for you was, you work with a lot of successful people, different artists and producers. So what is a commonality that they share, maybe that we can all glean from as far as work ethic, or just something characteristic-wise that really sets them apart from the crowd?
All of the people who I work with that are the most successful are the hardest workers. It's no more complicated than that. Literally, that's it. The people who I work with that are the most successful are the ones that work the hardest.
Okay, thank you.
Simple.
All right, this is down in front here. Got one down here.
Right here.
Hi, Leslie. Thanks for coming. One question I have is, you said in the industry, you got to know when to talk and when to shut up. Do you prefer people asking you questions or just shutting up and watching what you're doing?
Both at appropriate times. And that's what I mean by that is, so if I invite you in my room and I say, hey, come sit in while I mix, and as I'm listening to the music, you tap me and be like, hey, what are you doing? That's the time not to talk.
So it's kind of just like common sense, like
Yeah.
no.
And then if I decide to take a break and I pull out the Xbox controller, that's an appropriate time to say, hey, Les, what did you do right there? And that so-and-so and da-da-da. So it's really simple etiquette,
Okay.
kind of thing. When you see somebody focused and locked in, don't bother them.
Also, do you think Full Sail schedule, like all over the place, prepared you for the industry? Yeah.
Yeah, but I developed my sleep pattern coming to Full Sail.
Sounds about right.
Like you probably, how long you been here?
I've been here 3 or 4 months.
Okay, so you're locked in. Like
Yeah.
you already know. Like when you leave here, you're not gonna be able to sleep like a regular person. You're just not. To this day, I even if we have an early night, I'm up late. Like my body is programmed a certain way and it started here.
Cool.
But it's a
Looking
good
forward
thing
to that.
because it'll save you in a lot of sessions.
All right, cool. Thanks.
That's great. Awesome. There was another question, I think, right behind him. Yeah, somewhere back up here.
Oh, right here.
You can
Raise your
pass
hand
it
so
up.
she can see you. Oh, right there. Oh, you passing it back.
Hey Leslie, how's it going?
All right.
I had a question regarding when you were at Full Sail, what kind of extra things did you do to help you go above everyone else?
Oh, there were two things that I did probably that to the annoyance of some of the staff. I hung out in Tammy's office all the time in career development. I was always over in career development, coming down towards the end of my tenure. And I always tell students this is you have the resources here, make sure you use them. Don't be one of those people I see on the internet complaining about how, I went to Full Sail and I paid all this money and I don't have a job. That's your fault. That's not Full Sail's fault. And the first thing I tell people all the time is you got to accept responsibility for things. And so you have to put yourself in a position to be successful. So when you have all the resources here, go to career development, talk to your people, make sure they know who you are, if you got to show up every day or whatever the case may be. And I also took advantage of labs and times that I did have the opportunity to be here, I was here. If somebody said to me, hey, no problem if you hang out in the lab an extra hour, I'm in the lab an extra hour. There's no other place I had to be at that point. So you take advantage of the opportunities you do have. Do not become a stalker or a pest, but take advantage of the opportunities you have. And I tell people all the time, life, you can't determine how difficult life is sometimes. Life becomes difficult. That's a part of it, and that's it. But you have some level of control of how complicated your life is. And so the more you simplify things, the easier things will be sometimes. And simplifying means doing what you're supposed to do. Like, you will get, a lot of the help you need if you show up and you go to meet your reps and blah, blah, blah. Don't complicate the situation by not doing what you're supposed to do. It's kind of like, if you have a good example would be, in life, you can't, God forbid, if I was to get in a car accident, you can't control those kind of things. Life becomes difficult sometimes. However, if I had insurance, it makes the situation less complicated. There are some people who blatantly don't have insurance, and they can probably most likely afford it, but they choose not to, or they get around to it later. You've just complicated your life by not doing what you're supposed to do. do what you're supposed to do.
Thank you. And I also had one more question.
Uh-huh.
What were some struggles you had when you were at Full Sail, and how did you overcome them?
All the same struggles you have. I didn't have any money. There were no parking spaces. Are there still parking spaces? Or no park? See, it's all the same. All the same issues you had. But again, I understood how to overcome certain things. Like if you have no money, then you have to live simply. I ate ramen noodles till I got sick of them, and not getting sleep. That was like the biggest first adjustment I had to make is like sleep patterns and realizing that, hey, sometimes you got to figure out how to take naps and how to get your energy and not kill yourself, that kind of thing. But, all the same issues you have. What are some of the issues you have right now?
I'm an international student, so I don't have too much time when I get out of here. Money is also an issue, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do after.
Same thing. I was the same way.
Thank you very much.
All the same questions.
Yeah.
I've got somebody from the
Question
Bronx,
over
New
here,
York,
we'll
real
finish.
quick.
Wait,
We'll
she had
keep going. Yep.
Hello, Mr. Leslie. First off, thank you for coming for this. And my name is Billy, and I'm from
Your
Macon.
name is?
Billy.
Billy?
Yeah.
All right, Billy.
Hi.
Last name wouldn't happen to be Jean.
No, Sands. S-A-N-D-S. I'm from Macon, Georgia. You probably know where Macon is, right? So,
Huh?
yeah.
You said?
Macon? Yeah, I'm from Macon,
Oh,
Georgia.
okay.
Yeah, so you probably know where that
I
is.
just drove past Macon.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Cool. First off, do you sense like a devalue in music? Like when I turn on the radio, like if I'm listening to jazz versus like a rap station, like when I listen to rap,
You turn on the radio? Really?
yeah, my car.
Interesting.
Well, I have a '95 Explorer, so I can't really do much of that. So yeah, but like I noticed like it seems to me like the value of music has gone down. Like you can record anything and like put it on the radio. Like, does that affect you anyway? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
It's great for me because then,
it's
the
great for
quality
you.
of music is less, so I got to fix it. So
Yeah, but when I hear like, I don't want to bash like
business is booming for me.
like
But
when I hear like, I don't want to bash, but like when I hear like Rich Homie Quan or like Young Thug, like that bothers me. Like that doesn't bother you, or are you just doing like
here's the
what
thing.
you asked?
Here's the thing. It does, but at the same rate, you have to kind of put things into perspective. And with evolution and progress, sometimes comes things get diluted. When back in the 80s and 90s, a lot of this was a big mystery of how it was made, and only a select few got to make music and blah blah blah. Now all of you, even people who don't come to Full Sail know how to buy a Mac and get on GarageBand and think they know how to make a beat, and then all of a sudden they call themselves a producer. So because it's more accessible, it then dilutes the quality of what you're hearing just in general. That's life, and that's how we evolve. As things evolve, things progress, but things get diluted. And it's not gonna be the same, and every generation has the same complaint. I am almost positive my mom and my dad and my stepmom would probably listen to some of my music and be like, y'all were crazy. Like, I don't even know what y'all call music. And then the thing that we treasure as good music, Zoe would probably be like, what is that? Like, and then I would probably be bashing their music. Like, what are y'all listening to? That's life. Now, no generation is going to understand the next generation's music.
Of course.
It's just, that's how it is. So if it's annoying you, maybe you need to be listening to the stuff that doesn't annoy you.
I do.
That's the generation that you need to be in.
It's a balance. I also like.
Yeah.
I need the balance between like what's hip now versus like what I like.
Yeah, and I still, a lot of those cats annoy me, but I like Drake. I think Drake is talented. Pretty much, I rock Drake. On the way down, I was listening to Drake the whole time. So, I mean, yeah, it happens.
If it's him.
Thank you. I've got another online question here. It says, as a music producer starting out, how would I go about getting mix engineers like you to work with me, and what is the best approach?
Just call me and offer me some money.
It's that simple, folks. It's that simple.
I don't make this too complicated.
And then I have another one from Robert in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Ask, how do you pierce through all the noise in such a noisy industry to get your story out there?
You just be good. You you do what you believe. Do what you believe is good. Do the best at it. If it's good, the world will let you know. If it's not, work harder.
Gotcha. Yep. Absolutely. Another one down here. Or one there. Yep. See a couple of hands over there as well. Down front.
Wait,
on
hold
the
on,
side.
hold on one second. Isabel, whose cell phone do you have? Is that your cell phone?
It looks like
Debbie, I am
Debbie's.
not responsible for your cell phone. I'm just letting you know. Hi. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I got a couple more questions.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever experienced times when like people are actually trying to knock you down? And like, how did you overcome? Obviously, like working your butt off and actually like proving yourself and proving them wrong is, you know, a big thing. But is there anything else that you did to like just overcome what they were saying, what they were doing?
Typical for a mix engineer is, and for me, is when I started gaining a lot of steam and people started knowing who I was and blah, blah, blah. And it happens to this day, it just happened last week, where clients will come and tell me, well, so-and-so offered me half your rate to mix, you know, because they wanted to get the gig. So they would try to undercut me and, you know, say, well, Leslie's not all that great. He's overcharging you and da-da-da. And I'd be like, cool. And I always tell people, if you think it's expensive to hire a professional, hire an amateur, and you'll spend a whole lot more money. So I love when people do stuff like that and even when clients actually decide to go with the cheaper version or the cheaper option, because now you have something physical to compare it to. And then you listen to my work and you listen to somebody who you paid half my price for, and you go, oh, that's why he charges what he charges. So I actually love it. I think it's great. It actually helps me. So I'm fine. Yeah.
Is it? Oh, okay. One more question, just like a fun one. Do you have like a favorite project, or at least like maybe a group of favorite projects that you've done?
Most recently, I mean, it's hard not to make Happy my favorite. I mean, look at what that song became. So yeah. It's hard not to make that one of my favorites. Pharrell is such a phenomenal person. He's one of the nicest, greatest people I've ever worked with. So it's hard for me not to say Pharrell is one of my favorite people to work with. Mm-hmm. Over the years, I've made some great friendships. T-Boz from TLC, she's my youngest daughter's godmother, and I'm her daughter's godfather. Strike that from the record. So you know, we have great friendships that, you know, I've loved working with them, and I probably have the most adventure stories ever of all my TLC days, and I have people that I just really love working with. I love working with Ludacris. He's, you know, a real great guy to work with and professional, and my business partner, Manny Fresh, he and I got a couple of ventures together, and, you know, like I said, he's the main reason I met my wife, so, you know, he has to be one of my favorites at that point. So, yeah. And of course, Michael Jackson. I mean,
yeah.
It's like one of those questions, like, yeah, Michael, then everybody else. Like, it's obvious.
Yeah. Awesome. Got another one question right there. Yeah.
How you doing, Leslie? Thank you for being here. I did want to ask, like, starting out in music, what brought you to Full Sail? And then, since you kind of went through the ranks, what made you become a mix engineer? Did you record in studios, enjoy the recording session, say, no, this isn't for me? You did more mixing and said, I want to stick with this, or what?
For me, what brought me to Full Sail was I was trying to figure out what I was going to do after high school, and my mom was not hearing, not going to college or something thereof. So through my guidance counselor and my mom, and figuring out that Full Sail existed, and then coming here and checking out the facility and all that, coming here for me was a no-brainer because it was something I really wanted to do music. I didn't want to go to a traditional college because I felt like I'd be wasting my time. What made me choose mixing was as I was exploring the ranks of being an assistant and being a recording engineer, I liked recording, but I don't like typically, our artists are crazy. Like, they're all pretty crazy. Like, they have different levels of crazy, but they're all pretty crazy. So recording for me was something I knew I wasn't going to do my entire career. I knew mixing, because mixing is more about me and the music, and they just send me stuff and they tell me if they like something, but I don't have to deal with them all day. When you're recording, they're in there with you, and it's like, you know, pulling teeth. So, is everything okay over there, babe? They good? Oh, she has to potty? Belly, get up off the floor.
It's good to know, right?
No, you have to go with mommy. Sorry, guys. This is what happens when you have kids.
Got a question over here behind me?
Hello, sir. Sir, my name is Ritvik. I'm here.
Oh, there you go. Sorry.
My name is Ritvik, and
your name is what?
Shah. You can call me.
No,
it's very
go
difficult.
With the first thing you said. Well,
Ritvik.
How you spell that?
Ritvik. Ritvik.
Ritvik. Okay. I'm gonna get it before the end of the day.
All right. So you from the analog world. I mean, you eventually moved into the digital domain. Is there any time where, when you're mixing, you go back to that analog gear that you want to run your material through, or you evolve to plugins?
Yeah, I'm one of those people who anybody who knows me will tell you that I love change. I love new stuff. I like to have the latest gadget. I don't move backwards. I move forward with technology. Whatever the newest, latest thing is, that's me. And I don't like moving backwards. So I don't revisit analog. I don't miss anything I'm not one of those long-lived analog people. Like, I don't miss anything about analog. I don't miss anything about the analog world. None of it. Not one bit.
All right. So now that I know you love plugins, do you have any go-to plugin that you always go back to again?
For low-end stuff, I always go to the Little Labs Voice of God, the VOG. I go to that. I always use the UAD, pretty much anything UAD makes. I go through all their plug de-essers, compressors, EQs. UAD, that company is just a standout brand as far as the way they model the plugins. So pretty much anything UAD. And I always go with an SSL plugin of some sort as far as EQing because I came up on the SSL board, so I'm used to that sound and how the EQs sweep through the frequencies, and so I'm always gravitating to SSL plugins, and
I have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to be an intern in the world today. Earlier, there used to be a lot of jobs for interns, and so what would you tell an intern to do, or what would be his job or her job?
You said it's very difficult to be an intern.
I mean, there were so many more options earlier. Like there would be an intern to work the tape. There would be an intern to work the mixer.
Mm.
So in today's day, everything's in the box. So what would the intern do?
Find a way to stand out. And it's as simple as that. And sometimes it's not anything technical. Sometimes it's something not even related. I'm gonna give you a perfect example. Not the last time I was here, but the time before that, I was in this room answering questions. And about maybe 20 people had asked me questions before I got to this one young lady. And she asked me questions, and she asked me a question, her name was Germany. And she was the only person out of the previous 20 people that stood up and asked her question. And I told her, and I think appropriately, her question was, how do you stand out? And I said, you just did. You were the first person to stand up and ask your question. So sometimes it's something as simple as how you present yourself. There's no magic answer to the question, but you find a way to stand out. You find a way to just be memorable. Those are the things that count in the long run. You know what I mean?
I should make a plug here real quick that next week UAD will be on campus, and they'll be having a couple of presentations at the Treehouse. So make sure you check out the posters that are going to be coming up around campus, and make sure you check out that particular presentation by UAD. I think you'll get a lot of good information out of it.
Yes.
So it should be pretty good. Was there another question back here, I thought? Yeah, there's a couple over here, and that one back there. Yeah.
And then this young man.
Yep. Yeah, you can go.
You can go ahead.
Mr. Leslie, how you doing? My name is Kevin. I'm actually from the Media Communications program here. And lately I've had the privilege of assisting in music production, recording, and all that stuff regarding audio engineers and all you guys that are mostly here. So I was wondering if maybe you can offer certain tips or anything that we should look out to regarding for the people that are new regarding to the whole mixing stuff, because I'm very interested and I have very low experience and knowledge regarding it.
Regarding mixing?
Yeah, or producing and all that stuff. So.
Just off the bat, one good tip I could give you is just train your ears and, start listening to a lot of the stuff that you like to listen to. Try to understand what the music is doing, how people, certain techniques. Just start listening. Just start paying attention. Just listen. Just listen to a lot of music, a lot of different genres of music. Don't just listen to the genre that you like. Listen to things that you won't normally listen to. Get your ears involved in hearing different things. And, so mixing it can be technical, but it's also an art. And you have to learn how to listen to music a certain way. And so you just train your ears. When you go to a movie, pay attention to how they pan things and how things are flying around your head and certain string sections and, all that stuff in the movies, when you're watching TV, when you're listening to headphones, just pay attention. Start training your ears.
Awesome. Yeah, there's another one over here.
Oh, yep, right here.
He's got the mic over here.
Okay.
Yep.
Sean. There you go. What's up, Sean?
Hello. Oh, hey. I just wanted to ask, what do you think are some good signs that a place that we may intern is not the place to intern?
It's a very I don't know. Those are the kind of questions that are very specific to the person, because there are things that you may be able to tolerate that I might not be able to tolerate. I kind of knew. I remember one time I walked into a studio, and the studio manager had a mountain of cocaine on his desk, and I was like, "This is not the place for me." That was a quick decision. It's different if you see an artist doing that and you say, okay, that's their thing. But the studio manager, so different things, different morals that you might have, different personal beliefs, that kind of thing. I mean, I know you can kind of relate, and you're a parent, so you understand that there's certain environments that you can't bring your kids around. So for me, at this point in my life, it's great to be working at a recording studio where the owner, Akon, is a Muslim, so he doesn't drink or smoke. And I don't want any of that around my kids. So I think it's great that I work there and I can bring them to work. And you know what I mean? Just different things apply to different people. But you kind of have a set of core values. Like, for instance, just remove yourself from a studio setting, right? I wouldn't be around anybody that does cocaine on a regular day. So I don't feel like I should have to subject myself to that in my work environment. So you kind of gauge what you do at work with kind of how you run your personal life. For me, that's how I do it. You know what I mean? So there's certain things that I don't feel like I need to be around. And then certain things, you got to kind of put up with. It just depends on where you are in your career. But at the beginning of my career, when I was dead broke, I knew walking into a studio where the studio manager has a mountain of coke on his desk, that probably wasn't the place for me.
Great, awesome. Another one down here.
And that was a true story, by the way. I don't make that stuff up to make it sound good. I know sometimes people be like, really? I'm like, yeah.
Hey, Leslie, what's up? Who are some of the people that influenced you throughout your career, and have you gotten to a place where you were able to let them know how much you appreciated them?
Definitely. Personally, just even where I learned work ethic from was one of the people is my dad. He's sitting right here. I watched him work harder than anybody I knew when I was younger. So and my mom, same thing, work ethic. My stepmom, same thing, work ethic. Anybody could tell you that's where you kind of learn your values from. Professionally, I was just telling a story earlier where Mick Gazowski is a mix engineer, and he's one of those guys that he doesn't look the part. He's a very interesting guy, but I mean, he's a genius and he's a god in the mix world. We idolize him, you know. And so it was interesting. He actually mixed a couple of the songs on Pharrell's album as well. So to be on a project with one of people who you look up to, and then I actually spoke to him one time and he told me how much he liked my mix of Happy, and I was like, I was, my head was about to explode. I was like, Mick Gazowski, actually, So when you get a compliment from somebody who is one of your mentors or somebody you look up to me, that's the ultimate compliment. And I could tell he meant it. He wasn't just saying it, like, he really meant it. And I was like, oh, so Mick Gazowski is definitely on the list of mix engineers that, I look up to. But I look up to a lot of my peers. Like, when I think of Chris Lord-Alge and, all these guys that are mixing records that are doing, I mean, even some of my fellow Hall of Famers, like Phil Tan, and I remember looking up to Phil as a mixer, and Marcella, even though she assisted me before, I look at her and I'm in awe of what they're doing, and Joey and Larry, and a lot of my fellow Hall of Fame brothers. Joey can tell you, we talked about this before, where we have moments where we look at each other and go, we're in awe of what the other people are doing, and we're just like such fans of each other. So, I mean, the span ranges from industry professionals to our peers to, even here, Darren Schneider. I look up to a lot of these guys, and, you might think, oh, Darren's a teacher here, and how do you look up to him? But no, I mean, it's the same. It works on different levels.
Awesome, thanks. Was there any other question over here? I saw, yeah, right here on the end of that aisle.
How you doing, Leslie?
Julian.
I just had a question about what you expect from somebody who you refer to a job or works for you. What do you expect an engineer, and even particularly a Full Sail engineer, to know, or what do you expect him to be able to figure out in the studio environment?
Well, a Full Sail engineer, there's two aspects to that question. The technical side, what I expect from somebody who went to Full Sail is it's easy to determine because I'm on the recording the board. So I'm kind of immersed in the curriculum and what you guys are learning. So I expect you to know all that stuff, and I expect you to be good at it. It hasn't failed me yet. I always either refer or take Full Sail interns over just about anybody else, and I look for little flashes of greatness, and it's hard to put a pinpoint on it, but little flashes of, oh geez, this little girl. Little flashes of greatness don't always mean technical or what you learn from school. Little flashes, and some of you have heard me speak before, little flashes of greatness could be something as simple as if I send you to McDonald's and I say I want some nuggets, and I purposely didn't tell you what kind of sauce I want you to be able to figure out how to make that work. I had an intern one time come back, and he brought me exactly what I asked for, just the nuggets. I had another intern come back and brought me the nuggets with some ketchup. And then I had one intern that came back and brought me the nuggets, and he brought every single type of sauce they had because I never specified.
You remember what I brought you the last time I saw you?
Huh? Yes, I remember. Yeah, I remember that. So him bringing me all the sauces impressed me and made me go, oh, I never told him what kind of sauce I wanted, so he just brought all. That's a flash of greatness because that lets me know how you think. It doesn't matter what the subject matter is or what the content is. It's just you had the presence of mind to do something that I didn't ask you to do. So those are the kind of things I look for. Just little things.
Okay, so study the curriculum, get back to advanced workstations, have your Pro Tools ready, and should
All
be
that.
good.
All that.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Got a couple more online questions here. One was, this is from Amy in LA. She goes, were you an NWA fan growing up, and will you be seeing the movie, and would you like to work on the soundtracks?
I was an NWA fan. I will watch the movie. And I'm not working on the soundtrack that I know of, but that might change. I don't know. You know, things, sometimes, it's funny, sometimes people ask you things and they'll be like, hey, you working on so-and-so? And you be like, nah. And then 2 days later, you get a call to work on the same thing. So it happens.
There you go.
But as of right now, no, I'm not working on it. But yeah, I'd definitely go check out the movie.
Cool. There's another question here. I don't know. It's kind of a negative question, but it says, what was the worst project you worked on? Or do you even want to say?
Worst is a word that has to be used in a certain context. Like if it could be the worst experience or the worst music or the worst person. Because the project that I kind of alluded to earlier, which was one of the worst experiences, yielded some of the best music ever. So I'm trying to drop hints, but y'all will never guess who it was, trust me. If you don't already know, then you won't guess. But so worst always has contextual value. It's always like, are you saying the worst person I've ever worked with or the worst project? Because they're not always one and the same. I've worked with some people who it's been the worst experience ever, but like I said, it's yielded some of the greatest music you ever heard.
The results have been amazing,
I can tell you that in a negative connotation, one of the more interesting set of people I've ever worked with, and God rest her soul, Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown, they were interesting to work with. And it was a lot of negative interesting, you know, but
right.
That wasn't my fault, and they brought it on themselves, and it was very public, so I'm not trying to degrade their names or whatever.
No,
they did it
no.
to themselves. So, and you all know what I'm referring to, the heavy drug use, and you've seen that publicly play out, you know, and then even to her demise, you know, you've seen whatever level of, you see a lot of that. A lot of times it doesn't end like that for a lot of artists, but there's a lot of self-destructive behavior in the music industry, in the entertainment industry altogether. And sometimes, unfortunately, we see it play out that way.
Sure.
So, you know.
We got another question from Jason in the United Kingdom. He says, what one thing would you recommend to someone starting out in a similar career to you?
Just be willing to work hard. Soak up all the knowledge you can. And, you know, kind of prioritize your choices. Where I was telling somebody earlier today, if at any given point in you leaving school, you know, I've been fortunate enough to kind of have a path of grinding really early in my career, and then my family came along. But for some people who already have kids, you know, I was telling somebody earlier today, you find a way, if you got 3 things to pick from, if it's family, work, and sleep, you figure out which one in the equation is the least important, and it's usually sleep. You know, and you find a way to balance the other 2.
Sleep suffers, yes,
yeah,
indeed.
Yeah.
Any other questions back here? Somebody, there, I got the mic right there.
Okay. So, okay. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I'm really honored to have this opportunity. My name is Pedro. I'm from Brazil, and I have a question regarding to the industry. Does it have any kind of prejudice against international people? For example, I'm from Brazil and trying to find a job in the industry, entertainment industry, here in the United States. Do they have any kind of prejudice because of that?
I think prejudices exist, but less along the lines of nationality in a sense, but I'm sure it exists, and it depends on the genre of music that you're trying to get into. But it's there. It exists. I see it more like the previous question that this young lady asked about women, and you see that kind of thing. It's less of a racial and international background type thing, but it's there. It happens,
And you said before that all the artists are crazy. I know that probably you can't say anything, but what was the craziest thing you ever saw in a studio?
Wow. Take a number. I once saw an artist who shall go nameless for right now actually pee in the control room, like literally, like just. You asked.
When you have to go, you have to go, I guess.
The same reaction you just had is the same reaction I had. I was doing the exact same thing you're doing. I was like,
Stunned
okay.
disbelief, right?
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have the microphone over here, maybe? Or? Nope.
Belly, you okay? You all right? You having fun on the stairs? All right.
Go ahead, Billy.
Oh, sorry.
How important is like the business aspect of what you do? Like, I know, did you go through like fundamentals of music business when you were here? Or?
We did not have that course offering. That's why y'all are so lucky. Like, y'all got to really understand how lucky you guys are. Like, you guys have a curriculum that consists of all kind of stuff, and we just didn't have that. But
So,
no, we had.
You had to learn that stuff, like all the paperwork, like the taxes and
Yeah.
split sheets. Well, I don't think you probably have
all that stuff, and we had a touch of it, but not as in depth as you guys do.
So how did you learn? Did you
paying attention?
Paying attention.
Just observing. You'll be surprised how much you can learn by just, like I said, just shutting up. You go in a room. You're not only, and that's the thing that I tell a lot of people, when you're invited into somebody's room and they say, okay, you can come in and observe, and you're not only looking at what I do technically. Pay attention to the conversations I'm having. If you're allowed to be in the room and I'm sitting there negotiating my rate with a client, all that stuff that you're learning too. Because I learned how to negotiate by hearing somebody else do it. Or I learned what I should be charging by hearing somebody else's conversation. So when you have the opportunity to be in an environment where you can observe everything. I soaked in everything. I learned the good and the bad. I learned at an early pace, like even when I would watch people neglect their families, and so I learned all of that. I paid attention to all of that. Like I paid attention to conversations and split sheets, and just like you said, the artist might leave and leave stuff laying around, and I'll pick it up and be like, oh, that's what that is. Oh, okay. I learned, and then to me, and I say this to groups that I talk to all the time now, y'all have zero excuse not to know how to do something. The internet. I graduated in '92. The internet wasn't even invented. And if it was, it wasn't popping. 92? So y'all have every resource at your fingertips. The other day, I didn't know how to put a door back on a door hinge, and my daughters broke the bathroom door, and I went online and Googled what kind of screw do I need? How long does the screw need to be? Does it need to be a wood screw or a metal screw? Or you can Google anything, So there's no excuse not to know something. Zero excuse. When that's not like my biggest, I remember my parents would tell me when I was young and I would ask a question, and back then we had encyclopedia. Do y'all know what an encyclopedia is? Y'all even know what that is?
World books?
Yeah, we had real books, yes. And my dad would get us an encyclopedia set, and you ask a question, they'd be like, look it up. So now my favorite saying is Google it. Go Google it. And what's funny is we had to look it up and actually go and find the letter in the encyclopedia and say, now all y'all gotta do is type in, how do I fix a bathroom door? And all kind of pages come up. And everybody trying to sell you something. And, it's great.
Thank you.
All kinds of videos and everything else. Well, guys, we really thank you for coming out today and wrapping up here with Leslie. I just have a couple announcements real quick. Number one, is that Leslie's going to still be around through Saturday, and he's going to have a couple opportunities to have some meetings with some groups of people. So Debbie Franz, Debbie waving back there in the background. If you're interested in signing up for either one of those group meetings, then please see Debbie and she'll take care of that for you, okay? So you might have another opportunity to get and sit in with Leslie and chat for a little bit. All right, so grateful, so thankful for our live audience that's been watching. Thank you for being here today, and give a thanks to Leslie for us, ready? All right. Thank you, everybody.
Where do you get rocks from? Where did you get the rocks from?